Good day, my brothers and my sisters. Today I'm going to be making a video because my lovely girlfriend has been bothering me tremendously about making another video. She's like, "Oh, senpai, make another video, please, senpai. Make another video. I want to learn about finance and trading and investing. And I have my crypto portfolio and it's done nothing but go up. Can teach me, oh great senpai." So today I have another video for you guys because of that specific reason. I love her tremendously, and she's a really great person. So anyways, today I saw a video, not a video, but a post on this Facebook group I'm a part of. Exhibit A. Deontay, edit this into the video. So anyways, I saw that post on Facebook, and I thought today would be a great day to talk about inflation. The next few videos are going to be on inflation, just because it's so important to financial markets and trading. And then I'll probably go a little bit more into rates. It's a little bit more of an advanced concept if you've never gotten into trading before, but please just sit through it. It'll definitely help you with your investment journey. Anyways, let's jump into the video and learn something new.
The oddest things about economic life is that the prices for things keeps rising. Incomes and prices in the past were amazingly different from what they are today. In Pride and Prejudice, Mr. Darcy is supposed to have been one of the richest people in Britain. It's 1813, and his income is £10,000 a year. Today, that's less than half of what a primary school teacher straight out of college would earn. In Sense and Sensibility, there's an argument about whether an income of £20 a week is enough to make you well off, and the answer is yes. It's there in living memory too. A cinema ticket was 30p in 1970. Today, it's £13. So why does inflation happen? And should we worry if it does? Governments track inflation obsessively and try to keep it low. There's a vast amount of data collected all the time to ensure that governments can say with amazing precision how the inflation rate is going. Is it on track for 2.3% per annum, or might the increase of 0.38% in February be a cause for alarm? This is, in big historical terms, a relatively new concern. In the 17th century, the Spanish Empire essentially collapsed from inflation without even realizing it was occurring. So, over time, societies have become obsessed with measuring inflation and very focused on managing it. So, why is there inflation? What makes it happen? There are basically three reasons. The first is what economists call cost-push inflation. This is where the costs to businesses rise and are then passed on to customers. There can be a lot of reasons for these rises. Firstly, raw materials, especially oil, might get more expensive for a very nice reason.
So that's pretty much what's going on within the past year and a half, 2 years. So the Fed started raising interest rates in 2020. Well, not raising, but lowering interest rates, which helped cause inflation. And that reflects into commodity prices. The thing that was a little bit different these last 2 years is we also had logistical issues with the supply chain. So with the supply chain issues, how that affected inflation as well, not as much as the money printing did, but it still helped. It contributed to the inflation that we're currently going through. So with that, let's say that when, oh man, I'm gonna have to edit this part out. I'm stuttering too much. But anyways, so what happens when you have supply chain issues, that also causes commodity prices to also adjust, and it's just a logistic issue. I don't know if you guys remember, in I think it was March or April 2021, there was that canal that got backed up from that one ship that went horizontal instead of vertical, and it blocked the canal, and that just messed up supply chain issues even more. But anyways, when it comes to inflation, it affects commodity prices, and when we're trading commodities and futures, or even if you're trading like the stock of a company that is heavily influenced by commodities, it is heavily influenced by inflation.
Because a lot of countries are developing and doing well. Secondly, workers might be asking for more money and succeeding either because they've organised themselves well politically or because schools and colleges haven't been training enough workers in the skills that companies need. Thirdly, land rents might be increasing because not enough factories and offices have been built, which tends to come down to political failures around building permits. The result of all this is that businesses then push their extra costs onto the consumer by raising prices. They don't want to, it's a scary move, but they have no choice. They'd go out of business otherwise. The second kind of inflation is called demand inflation. This is when there are increases in the number of people who want something whose supply can't keep up. The most common cause of demand inflation is an otherwise rather nice thing, that people are getting richer and have more money to spend. That's why a government can cause inflation by lowering taxes. Everyone loves tax breaks because they raise disposable income, but in the longer term, raising demand can also cause price rises, thereby negating some of the initial boost of the tax break. Similarly, a fall in interest rates may cause short-term pleasure and long-term inflationary pressure.
So that's kind of what we're going through right now. So in 2020, when President Trump was in office, everybody was excited, or at least put at ease when it came to the stimulus. So you had unemployment stimulus, you had businesses being able to get PPP loans or EIDL loans, what have you. But the thing is when you're printing all this money, it gives people confidence in the market for the short term, but in the long term, there are going to be effects, which we're currently seeing now, almost 2 years later. I would say a year and a half, 2 years later. So what happened is we had a lot of money being pushed into the economy, and people and unfortunately, if you don't own any assets or you weren't trading or anything like that, you're not really taking part in that appreciation or that capital that's being injected into the market through the Fed. But people are getting a lot more cash. Now, I know a lot of businesses that weren't able to sustain because of supply chain issues, or their commodities, or the materials that they normally were able to purchase for a decent price were starting to inflate in value. So they were having to pay a lot more for those same materials. But anyways, let's just jump back in the video and see if he says anything about that.
If interest rates on loans or mortgages fall, we might be tempted to take out a loan to buy the new car we've always wanted. But the car company, sensing solid demand, will soon enough jack up the price. If banks and government...
So this video came out, I think, 6 or 7 years ago. And that's currently what we're going through now. So I know a lot of you, if you've looked at used car prices, they've like doubled or tripled in price, depending on the car you're looking at. And that's just happened because interest rates are low. So people don't mind taking out debt because the rate that they're going to have to pay on that loan is super cheap. So right now is really the best time to take out a loan for anything before the Fed decides to raise interest rates. But all that does is make that asset or that liability increase in value, which is somewhat of a good thing, but then also some of a bad thing, because it's stimulating the economy, but then you can stimulate the economy too much to where it's like, okay, now we really need to push back and raise rates. But let's see if he says anything in the video about that. But I thought the car reference was just interesting because that's what's going on right now.
Governments inject more cash and credit into the economy, people have more money to spend. But if they're all chasing the same number of goods as before, it just means they can all offer more for the same. This is what happened around housing in the UK, particularly in London. There are broadly the same number of houses there were 25 years ago, but they all cost an absurd amount more. The third classic cause of inflation is governments printing money.
Also, to kind of go into that, I think it would be interesting to say that if you want to take out debt, it makes sense. But if you're going to pay for things in cash, sometimes it's better to just wait until the correction happens. So let's say I want to buy a car If I need to take out a loan for that car, it's better for me to do it now while interest rates are low. But if I'm going to pay cash for the car, it's better for me to just wait until interest rates hike. Let's see, like that car price will come down in value because it's not as many people willing to buy cars. So salesmen will be more inclined to give me a good deal on the car at a cheaper rate. I could probably get some add-ons to the car, et cetera, et cetera. But since I'm paying in cash and I don't need to pay with the loan, it's more advantageous for me to just wait until the rate hike and I can get a better deal on that car. If I'm buying it cash. If you need to take out a loan to purchase an asset or a liability, then it is better to do it when the rates are low.
There's a deep logic behind this idea, which can at first sound almost criminal. Governments often want to stimulate the economy to create more jobs, so they print more money. This can be done literally by increasing the number of notes in circulation, or they can do it by increasing government debt or by letting banks make bigger loans on the same security. In all these cases, the amount of money in circulation increases. But there's a big problem, because after a while it means the worth of every note starts to fall, because more notes are chasing the same number of things to buy. There's more money about, but it doesn't buy you more, it just pushes up prices. However, there is a possibility here, spotted by the economist and philosopher John Maynard Keynes. It takes time for the value of money to fall, so for a little while there can be more cash around and prices haven't yet risen. This is a window of opportunity that economies can, with a lot of luck, seize. At such Goldilocks moments, people can actually increase their consumption. Firms can afford to hire more workers and buy new machinery. And once they've done that, production will increase. There will be more stuff to buy before inflation has eaten up the gain. So there's a real expansion. A bit of inflation can grow the economy. That's a big but contested idea. The argument is that it doesn't matter if prices are going up 10% every year, if wages are going up 15%. So deliberate government-led inflation can be a mechanism for growing the economy. But it's a very risky move which has often backfired and been attacked by the great enemies of the Keynesian economists, people we now know as the monetarists, who believe that anything which increases inflation is always going to be an issue and must be avoided at all costs, whatever the short term. So, why is inflation such a problem? The real problem is that not everything inflates at exactly the same rate. If everything went up by 100% a year, and so did everyone's income, and it was all totally steady and predictable, it would be weird, but it wouldn't actually do any harm. The harm comes from the fact that not everything changes at the same rate. In 1940,
So as traders, that's what we're trying to take advantage of. We're trying to find and I wouldn't just say traders, I would say more so as an investor. You're trying to find things that are mispriced. So when things are undervalued, that's when you want to purchase them. That way they can get on par with true value. So yeah, that's pretty much what we're trying to do. You know, if you're in real estate, you're trying to buy a house that's cheap and then you're trying to sell it for more than it's worth. So you're trying to buy the worst house on the block. You know, maybe the houses sell for $300,000 and you're able to purchase it for $200,000, and maybe you renovate it a little bit for $50,000, and then you sell it for the true value of that area, which is $300,000, and you make a $50,000 profit. So, and even when we're trading stocks, you know, maybe something bad came out about, let's just say Facebook, something bad came out about Facebook and it just tanked for no reason, but their earnings are still going to be the same. Everything else about them is going to still be the same. So once that market tanks for whatever reason, maybe you end up purchasing some shares of Facebook to try and get back to its true value as earnings come out and everything's looking good for the company and nothing's really changed. It's just a bad news press, like a bad press release or something like that. Anyways, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to find value in things that are mispriced.
In Hungary, inflation reached 150,000% each day. A jelly bean that cost 10p on Monday morning would therefore cost the equivalent of £150 on Tuesday morning and £225,000 on Wednesday morning. That's incredibly complicated, but it's a problem only because other things would not be increasing as fast. If you kept your life savings under the mattress, you'd be wiped out in a day or two. The money that could have bought you a house on Monday would get you a jelly bean on Wednesday. This is the ultra-extreme case, but it illustrates a basic point. Inflation is bad for savings. There's no...
And that's why a lot of people within the last 2 years have struggled. If you purchase bonds or you just had a savings account, you're not getting any APY or appreciation of value from having a savings account or having bonds for the most part, or even like a CD or anything like that. It was better to have assets like stocks, land, real estate, anything that it can appreciate in value due to inflation. Now, what happens when you have inflation, how we use it in Global Macros, you say you have Goldilocks when GDP is rising and inflation is going down. Then you also have reflation, which is when you have GDP going up and you also have inflation going up. We've been in reflation for a long time. So what happens when that happens is you go from reflationary markets to either deflationary or stagflationary markets. So what we're looking at now is either going into deflation or stagflation once the Fed decides to raise interest rates, which should start to affect GDP, and it also should affect inflation. If we go into deflationary markets, then that means that GDP is still rising and as GDP is going down, but inflation is also going down. When we get to stagflationary markets, that means that GDP is going down, but then also inflation is going up, which is a very bad thing. Now, it's not bad in like maybe a 3 to 4, 6 month type of term, but if it's year on year going into stagflationary markets, that's really bad.
No point in putting money aside, and that's a pity, because saving money, the attitude of saving up for things before you buy them, is an admirable characteristic. Keeping inflation low rewards prudence. It helps long-term planning, because you can know what your money will be worth in the future, and this rewards taking care around costs. Ultimately, what inflation reflects is the instability of the world and of life itself. Prices rise because we can't yet keep the complex system known as the economy under control. There's always something going wrong or growing or falling or failing somewhere. Ideally, we'd keep inflation under control with a more or less fixed amount of money chasing a more or less stable amount of goods. But in reality, low inflation is extremely difficult to achieve because so many factors can derail it. Cost of materials, cost of labor, productivity, taxes falling or rising, exchange rates, again, falling or rising, a growing domestic economy, a neighboring economy that's growing, falling interest rates, the buying of government bonds, or the printing of money. In the end, we may have to accept that inflation is, a bit like the weather or our own moods, something that's inherently rather unstable, something whose ups and downs we must endure even as we try to mitigate the extremes. Learning to live with inflation belongs to wisdom.
Yeah, definitely check out the School of Life YouTube page. Like, I've been following these guys for years. So anyways, that's the first introduction to inflation on this channel. But I definitely want to do some more, give some more examples of inflation and how to take advantage of inflation and how to prepare for after we leave from inflationary markets to deflation or stagflationary markets, and how we would decide to structure our portfolio based off that. It might be a little bit more defensive heavy or dividend heavy than high beta. And then we'll go into like terminology and all that stuff also. So anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you learned something new today. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Turn on the post notification bells, and toast to you guys. Peace.
Man, even Jesus had a shooter, and God be having unbelievers that didn't mess up their demeanor. And yes, they know it's hard, they know, cause when they be up in those trenches, man, they show out. But what